Hey there. Today I'm going to answer reader questions and viewer questions and maybe debunk a couple of things I've seen on Threads. So stay tuned and see if I answer your question or maybe create more. Hi there. Welcome back to the channel, or welcome to the channel if it's your first time here. I'm John Hartness. I'm the founder and publisher of Falstaff Books, an independent press based out of Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm also a freelance editor and the author of over 40 novel-length works, including The Black Knight Chronicles, Bubba the Monster Hunter, and Quincy Harker, Demon Hunter, among a pile of others. And if you have been here before, you'll notice there's something missing behind me. My brag shelf. I needed the bookcase for a convention because we had space behind us and a credenza. So I took my brag shelf to Con Carolinas and sold books off it all weekend. And because I had 2 days at home between Con Carolinas and today, when I'm leaving for StokerCon in roughly an hour, I haven't had time to set it back up. And I'm taking a quick few minutes to shoot a video for you guys because there have been some really interesting questions coming up in comments. And then there have been a few things that I've seen on Threads recently that I'm like, yeah, that one needs a real answer. So one of the questions that someone asked on one of our previous videos is, when is it time to send the book to the editor? And the answer is, it depends. It depends on a lot of things, actually. It depends on what your contract is. If you are working with a traditional publisher, then you should do a couple of revision passes before you turn it in, even if it makes the book late. Most of the time, your editors are going to be very understanding if you send them a note. Please don't send them that note 48 hours before the book is due. But you send them a note a month or two out and say, hey, I might need an extra week to look at this one more time. Because every revision pass you do on your book is less work that we as your editors have to do on the stuff you already know how to fix. And we can focus on the things that you don't necessarily know how to fix. So the cleaner the manuscript you turn into us is, the better. And even when I'm working with as a freelance editor on self-published projects, when it's as clean and tight as you can possibly make it, eventually you get to a point where you're not even just rotating the tires, you're rotating the lug nuts. So you're changing basically nothing. If that's how it feels, like you've done all the work you can do, and now you're just rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic, that's a terrible analogy because I really hope that your book doesn't sink. But if all you're doing is rotating your lug nuts, now it's time to send it to an editor. Now it's time for fresh eyes. I prefer that if you use alpha or beta readers, that you do that before it goes to editorial. And the reason for that is that, especially if the book is under contract, working with an editor is an editorial decree. It's also a suggestion, but it's a suggestion that should carry a good bit of weight. And your alpha and beta readers are typically not going to be experienced or professionals in the field. So they're looking for different things. So get that out of the way before I see it, please. This one came up on Threads. Are publishers and agents offering money to new authors? No. Agents, very much no. Now, here's what I mean. Agents do not pay authors. Agents also do not charge authors. Agents get a cut of the sales of your book. Typically, in this industry today, it's about 15%. So if you get a $100,000 advance, $15,000 of that goes to your agent. If your book makes $1 million in royalties, $150,000 of that goes to the agent. You may ask why they're worth it. And the answer is that a lot of times you wouldn't be getting those advances or that level of royalties without them. So if your book self-published was going to make $200,000 and with an agent it's making $1 million, you're pocketing an extra $650,000 off that agent's work, and they deserve to get their $150,000 of it. So, but agents don't offer money to authors to sign with them. That's not what they do. It's not how they work. And publishers are not out of the blue offering money to authors they've never heard of. Yes, publishers are still buying debut novels. Publishers are still working with debut authors who have never published anything. But they're not looking for you. You go find them. Unless you're a celebrity. If you're a celebrity, please share the link to this channel in your socials because I could use the subscriber boost. But let's be real, you're not a celebrity. So if you're not already famous, publishers aren't looking for you unless they have your manuscript in front of them, which typically happens because you have an agent, or because you have self-published successfully, done a really good job, and now they're interested in looking at your next thing. So, yes, advances are still being paid. No, they are never being paid by literary agents. And no, that email that you got this morning talking about your brand new unpublished first novel that you don't have an agent for is not legitimate. I've seen several people, this publisher reached out to me because I'm writing a book and they think my voice is awesome. How the hell do they know? You've never published anything. They've never read anything of yours. How do they know? No, what they are is targeted advertising that has scraped who has bought your social media stuff from Meta or Facebook or whoever the hell they're buying it from, and because you posted something about you're writing a book and you're really excited about it, your data got funneled to somebody somewhere and somebody bought it and said, oh, they look like a sucker. Let's see if we can get their money. Sorry. That's the unfortunate truth of it is unsolicited emails from agents and publishers are almost always scams. There are a few. I've told stories on here about being reached out to by people I did not believe could possibly ever know my name, but it's very, very rare. And it almost never happens to someone who hasn't already built up a track record in publishing. Okay, next up. This is a good one. Should I write something else while letting a book sit? I think so. If you are like the rest of us in this business, you've got more ideas than you have years left in your life. Because every writer I know has dozens and dozens of ideas and would love to do nothing more than sit and dictate and have someone type them for them forever. And we could get so much more work done. Yeah, ideas are cheap. And if you're just letting a book sit and percolate before you go back to it and revise it, then yeah, why not work on something else? It'll help cleanse your palate even further, because that's why you're letting the book sit, because you want distance from it, you want some space. So putting something else in your brain hole is going to help you get that distance. Don't use this as an arbitrary way to cheat the amount of time your book needs to sit before you go back to it. And only you can define that amount of time. I say the longer the better, but your mileage may vary and will vary. But yes, I think it's absolutely awesome to write something else while you let a book sit, not the second book in the series. Something different. The reason you don't want to do the second book in the series is by the time you go back to revise the first book, you may change things that then invalidate everything you wrote for book 2. So no, you can't get started on book 2 while you're waiting to polish book 1. That doesn't give you the distance. Write something else, preferably in a whole different genre. For people like A.J. Hartley, this is fantastic because he writes in 27 different genres anyway. I write primarily urban fantasy, so if I'm letting a Harker book sit, I work on a Bubble book, which is a very different tone, a very different style, and a different structure because Bubba books are typically novellas and Harker books are novels. So you get what I'm saying there. So give it as much time as you possibly can. And yes, it is great to work on something different while your book sits. Next up, do you do pre-orders? How long should they be? What's the deal with pre-orders? Self-publishing, they don't matter. They used to, because it used to be that anytime someone pre-ordered your book at any point in the pre-order period, that sale got counted on release day and it gave you a rankings boost. Well, Amazon, strangely enough, like they do every 15 minutes, changed their back end of how they count things, and that's no longer the case. Now, the sales rank credit goes into effect as soon as the pre-order is placed. So if you've got a 90-day pre-order and you get one pre-order a day, it's not like it used to be where you got 90 orders on release day and it spiked your ranking. So if you are self-publishing, pre-orders are largely irrelevant at this point. Yes, they're great. Yes, they're helpful. And maybe they can build some buzz on launch day if you have a big enough footprint. But if you are a self-published author who's publishing their first book, or a self-published author who's not selling a tremendous number of books, and by tremendous number, I mean if you're not selling 10,000 books every single year, it probably doesn't matter. Your pre-orders aren't going to move the needle on anything, so don't do them. I haven't done pre-orders for over a year because I screwed one up on Amazon and butchered the release date, and they yoinked my pre-order privileges for a year. And honestly, I haven't bothered asking to get them reinstated because I haven't seen a significant uptick or downtick in sales. We do pre-orders on our website, on our direct sales site on Shopify. There's a link in the description. But we don't do them on Amazon, so I haven't noticed that they matter. If you are a traditionally published author, they're very important because bookstores decide how much of your next book to buy based on what they sell at the jump of this book. Yeah, it's sometimes if you have a book that starts slow and ramps up, that'll help your orders of your next book too. But if we're being real, nowadays that happens less and less often. It's very rare today with the way bookstore distribution and the way bookstore returns and orders are done. So for traditionally published authors, they are increasing in importance. And for self-published authors, for authors with small presses, they are less and less important. That's my opinion. Feel free to tell me I'm an idiot in comments. I'm sure someone out there in YouTube Landia is flipping out saying I'm the stupidest thing. to ever live. And again, y'all, 2 cats. You think there's not somebody looking at me like I'm an idiot every minute that I'm in this house? Next up, should I hold off on submitting until I have a backlog of at least 1 book or novella in addition to what I'm submitting, or submit as soon as it's ready? I say submit as soon as it's ready. Especially because you don't want to write book 2 if you are seeking traditional publishing. And I mean independent publishers, I mean big New York publishers. If you are seeking traditionally published avenue for your books, you don't want to write book 2 until you see what your editorial notes are on book 1. Don't make more work for yourself by having to go change a pile of stuff on book 2 because you wrote it before you got edit notes on book 1. So I feel like you should submit a book as soon as it's ready. When you're self-publishing, if you decide to do a rapid release strategy, then yeah, you should stockpile the books and then send them all to editorial at one shot so that you can start getting them all formatted, getting covers made, all that jazz, while all 3 of them are being edited, so you can then do the rapid release the way you want to. That's your call. But if you are submitting for traditional publishing, submit as soon as it's ready. Make sure that your query letter or your cover letter says how many books you plan to write in this series, because we really do want to know. And yeah, I know everybody you're seeing online is telling you that it's a standalone with series potential. And that may very well be the case for a New York press, for a big press. Me, indie presses, and the people like me, we buy series at a time, and we want to know how many we're buying. So you're tailoring your cover letter or your query letter to the market you're submitting to anyway, aren't you? So keep that in mind, that if you're submitting to Tor or Bain or Ace or Penguin or Delaware, whatever, any of the bigger presses, you may well want to follow the advice of saying it is a standalone with series potential. But if you're submitting to an indie press like Falstaff, just tell me up front how many you want to write. Ooh, this is a good one. All right, this is my last one for the day. And it's talking about blurbs. Y'all know what a blurb is, right? Well, there's 2 kinds of blurbs. One is all of this. This is your back cover copy, which sometimes is referred to as a blurb. And I'm looking around to see if I can find anything on my table here that has a cover blurb. But yeah, here we go. I love these books. Academy Award winner Whoopi Goldberg. That's the kind of blurb we're talking about. Do you need a blurb on your cover? Especially for your debut self-published novel? No. Because odds are you don't know anybody who's big enough to move the needle. As authors, we love giving blurbs for a couple of reasons. One, we get to read cool books before y'all do out there in the real world. And that's cool. It makes us feel like we're part of a club, because we are kind of part of a club. But also, the number of people who are a big enough deal to significantly move the needle on book sales is very, very small. If you have a niche market, or you are marketing to a very specific group of people, then there may be someone who is a good blurb for you. If you're a horror writer and you can get a blurb from one of the 10 or 15 tippy-top horror writers working today, yeah, that'll probably shift the needle in your favor. I'm a big fan of Nicholas Eames's writing, So when I saw that he blurbed The Black Tongue Thief, that tipped it over for me. Nicholas Eames is a fantastic writer, but he's not Brandon Sanderson or Robert Jordan or Tolkien. He's not moving that needle for very many people. So, yes, it's great to have blurbs, but if you're going to go to the effort to solicit them, and your publisher is going to go to the effort of putting them on the book cover, make sure there's someone that has a big enough footprint to matter. I'm usually not. I'm happy to blurb books for my friends, but I'm not a big enough deal to move the needle on a book. So it never really upsets me when a publisher doesn't send me a book to blurb. And I tell a lot of my friends, hey, if you want a blurb, let me know. And I have blurbed a few books in my time. It doesn't happen all that often because I'm a mid-list author. So I understand that my name on the cover isn't really going to move a lot of copies for you. Sorry. Wish I could, especially if I love the book. But, if I get Stephen King, that'll help a little. Also, don't be upset if authors don't reply to your blurb request if you don't know them personally. I usually don't. And if you are working with a publisher or with an agent, you shouldn't really be the person asking for the blurbs, because it kind of feels bad for the author being asked for a blurb if we have to say no. When my authors say, hey, I'd like to get a blurb for this and this. Okay, do you want to reach out or do you want me to? On several of our recent books, either the editor or I have reached out for the blurbs from a list that the author provided. I had a friend that I'm publishing his horror novel later this year come up to me this past weekend and say, hey, blah and blah and blee and blop and boop have agreed to blurb my book for me. When can I send them copies? Well, these are all friends of his. He's very established in the writer community. So it's easier for him to just say, hey, do you have time to blurb a book for me? And he got a lot more yeses. But if you're at all uncomfortable asking for blurbs, your publisher and or your agent are pretty happy to do it. It's also part of our jobs. And if you go to your publisher and you say, hey, I'd like to get some blurbs for my book, your publisher will almost certainly say, okay, who do you think we should ask? And don't say people that you have never met, have never heard of you, have never heard of your publisher. I don't ask Brandon Sanderson to blurb books for Falstaff, although I've met Brandon a few times and we get along quite well. We're not super tight like that, and he hasn't heard of most of the people that I'm publishing, I don't think. Jonathan Mayberry is a friend and a mentor, so I'm pretty comfortable asking Jonathan to blurb a book for me. Make sure that there's some kind of connection in some way. A lot of times agents will ask other authors they represent to blurb a book for a new author that they have. So you don't have to have blurbs. I don't put them on very many of my books, except, and this is a case that kind of only works if you're writing comedy, I write fake blurbs for the Bubba the Monster Hunter series. They're all 1,000% fake, and they're attributed to frequently non-existent people from my history, like I did have an 8th grade English teacher, but she has never read any of the Bubba the Monster Hunter books and has never told me that it's the stupidest thing she's ever read. My father never read any of the Bubba the Monster Hunter books and certainly did not say, I thought he was going to be a lawyer, I wish he had. but it says something to that effect on the back of a bubble book because it's comedy. So I write fake blurbs for those books, being a giant smartass. And people tend to find them at least mildly amusing. So those are the answers to some questions I've gotten on videos and some things I've seen on threads that I wanted to help clear up a little bit. If you have any questions about publishing, editing, writing, leave them down below, and at some point we will do another one of these videos when I've only got about 30 minutes to shoot and have to then get in a car and drive for 8 hours. So I hope I'll see you at a convention this summer. Probably by the time this comes out, the next one I'll be at will be Dragon Con in Atlanta Labor Day weekend. If you would like to see me there, find me in the app. I cannot make plans for anything ahead of time at Dragon Con other than the stuff I'm going to be doing in the app because I work my ass off that week in Atlanta. So I would love to see you. Find me in the app. Hey, if you stuck around this long, you should give us a like, hit that subscribe button. And if you want your name up here on the purple wall of cool, you can become a member of the channel and support the channel. But just clicking a like, leaving a comment, engaging with the video helps the channel quite a bit. We're pushing for 7,000 subscribers by the end of the summer. Last year we got to 6K at Dragon Con, so I'd really like to see us be at 7 before we get there, and then we're pushing towards 10K. So we're still a baby channel, but we're growing. Thank you for hanging out with us, and till next time, bye.